Honda's CR-V was an extremely popular SUV at one time. It was, believe it or not, the best-selling import in India for a good period. But then the CR-V lost its way, it lost its appeal. Today we have all new CR-V with us, and it has something very different. First up, it's got this, 160 horsepower diesel. And number two, it's got this, an extra row of seats. Now, does that put the new CR-V back in the game? We're here in Bangkok to find out. Honda is the largest producer of internal combustion engines in the world. Last year, it made 29 million of them. But Honda only got started with diesels recently, and truth be told, they haven't been fantastic. So I wasn't expecting much when I picked up the CR-V diesel. Now the CR-V gets a diesel for the first time. And the thing is, it's related to the 1.5 diesel we have in India. But there's a big difference. While that engine is noisy and clattery and extremely loud at startup, this one, well, I'm whispering and you can still hear me. It's soft, it's silent, it's refined. It's unbelievable. This engine is related to our 1.5 and it's just so much better. Now this engine may only be a 1.6, but it puts out 160 horsepower, which is pretty decent. How has Honda done this? The increase in power comes from a new twin turbo setup. This engine also uses higher pressure fuel injection, and the motor has been retuned to be smoother and more silent. Of course, under load, most diesel engines do make a bit of din, and this engine is no different. So put your foot down, and yes, the volume rises. But as soon as you start to cruise, as soon as you lift off, as soon as you're gentle on the gas, as soon as you're gentle on the throttle, it's quiet again. Quiet, refined, and also pretty responsive. So all in all, it's pretty impressive. While there's no turbo diesel spike and no sudden rush of boost, the power just keeps coming and coming, and that feels nice. The engine pulling all the way to 4000 RPM before you have to shift to the next gear. The instant sledgehammer-like response the Tucson has isn't there. The thing with the engine is, when you put your foot down flat and you want that strong punch and that acceleration, yes, it does feel a bit lacking. 20, 30, 40 horsepower, that will make a big difference. What also makes this 160 horsepower twin-stage turbo diesel pretty nice to use is a 9-speed automatic. Now it isn't lightning quick, but the fact that you have 9 gears evenly spaced out, you have these paddle shifts, yes, it does make it pretty nice to drive. It does pause momentarily before downshifting, and it isn't as quick as a twin clutch, but for everyday driving, there really is nothing to complain about. Also pretty sorted is the ride comfort. Now this isn't the most quiet or the most soft and supple suspension, but it does absorb a huge amount of the big bumps, and that gives you a lot of comfort. Over bad patches, this new car on its bigger wheels is a bit more pliant and a bit more silent. Yes, there is a bit of movement, there is a bit of thumping, there is some noise, but Honda in general have done such a good job that the CR-V takes the edge off most of the bad bits, and that makes it a pretty good riding car. When it comes to driving manners, it's easy to forget that the CR-V was once the pioneer of soft-roaders, an SUV with car-like driving manners. And this new one, with its longer wheelbase and marginally wider track and larger tires, is even better. Now Honda have been making their newer cars pretty nice to drive, and this new CR-V2 is a bit more agile, and a bit more driver friendly. It rolls less, the steering has a nicer feel to it, and overall it seems like a big step up on the earlier car. All the stiffening of the body, the additional high strength steel truly seem to have had an effect here. The steering has a good amount of feel, the car responds a bit faster to a tweak of the wheel, and although the CR-V does roll in corners, body roll is kept nicely in check. So carving up a few corners is actually mildly entertaining. Where the new CR-V doesn't really shine is in the looks department. For one, the design is evolutionary and is easy to confuse with the car that's currently on sale in India. However, look closer and you will notice the bulging wheel arches, the wider front fenders, and the more stand-up headlights. What do I like best about this design? Well, it has to be the protruding L-shaped taillights. They just hit the spot. The inside of the CR-V isn't evolutionary, but it's a big step forward. It may be similar looking on the outside, but over here, once you're seated in the cabin, it's very different. The biggest change, of course, is this gear lever or gear selector. It's not a gear lever for sure. You get park, reverse when you pull it down, neutral and drive, very nice and nifty. You get this wide expanse of the dash. In fact, the interiors do feel a bit wider. You get this nice storage area here, plenty of room, 2 USBs, 1 HDMI cable, and a 12-volt outlet. Nice rubberized trays here, comfortable big seats. Yes, the CR-V on the inside really does work. Not only is it all new, there also seems to be a change in attitude. Whereas on the current car, you had the impression that Honda was trying to give you the minimum required amount, here it's pretty clear. Honda definitely wants to please you. The quality of the materials is much improved, the level of detailing and finish are better, and Honda has tastefully used leather on the dash with highlights in wood and metal. I particularly like the minimalistic instrument panel. The monochrome temperature and fuel gauges are classy, the big frameless touchscreen looks good, and the door pads have a nice layer of padding too. Also impressive are the large front seats. Built for American frames, they are long, wide, and offer particularly good lateral support. And it's also quite roomy in the rear. So huge amount of legroom here, especially if you don't have someone very tall driving and there's nobody sitting in the 6th and 7th seat. Good thigh support from this long seat, nice long seat base. They're sat at a good height off the floor. The backrest can be inclined at the perfect angle. I've got it a little back, I like a little reclined. The cabin is also pretty practical. You get a large glove box, a huge adjustable elbow box, big door pads, and plenty of bins. You also have multiple USB slots up front, a couple of ports in the rear, and Honda has smartly incorporated a full-size spare under the third row of seats. Pretty smart. Even the power tailgate can be programmed to avoid slamming into the roof of your low garage. The highlight of this new CR-V, however, is the third row. Of course, the biggest difference in this new CR-V is the back seat. And to do that, to access the rear, you've got to slip the second row fully forward, flip the backrest down, and then pull really hard and flip the seat forward. It is quite tough to do that. Well, getting in and out is a bit of a pain. Of course, once you're sat in the back, like most 7-seaters, like most cars with the third row, there isn't too much space here. Headroom is pretty tight. You're sat extremely low with your knees up, and comfort is best for children. But there are a few nice touches. There are these vents here, one for each passenger. There's a blower control. There's this nice cup holder, nicely executed, and this smart little grip that helps you get out of the back seat, the most difficult thing to do in a 7-seater. The new CR-V, when it comes sometime in the middle of 2018, is likely to be a bit more expensive than the current car. Prices for this 7-seat diesel are likely to be around 25 or 27 lakhs. Despite this, those of you waiting for a diesel CR-V will find this car hugely appealing. It's comfortable, smooth, powerful, better built than the earlier car, and with the diesel in the nose, the running costs will just plummet. And then you have the practicality of the 7 seats. Yes, performance could have been a bit better and it doesn't stand out in a crowd. But even as things stand, the CR-V offers so much car for the money, it's likely to be quite popular. It will certainly appeal to those looking for an easier to drive, less bulky alternative to the Toyota Fortuner. And that for Honda could be a game changer.
इसी कभी न रुकने वाले जुनून को रफ्तार देता है सर्वो वर्ल्ड क्लास लुब्रिकेंट्स।